Hey, this is Chris. Keeping it real, facts over fear. How are you doing today? Here for our weekly COVID herd immunity chart for North Carolina. I've stopped doing the comprehensive reports because all of the other data is pretty much steady. No big news there, so I don't feel like wasting your time regurgitating information that we could have said for the last 7 or 8 weeks now. So let's get to it. The big news this week is I've changed the ratio of suspected cases to confirmed cases to a 5-to-1 ratio. Talked a little bit on my last video. There was data from Sweden over the summer, which indicated there were 20 cases for every confirmed case. CDC came out in June with a figure of 10 actual cases per confirmed case. Came out later in October with an 8-to-1 ratio. And just kind of taking a look at what this virus has been doing for the last few weeks, I suspect that the ratio is much lower. And so I'm just going to go with 5-to-1. Not for any special reason, not for any scientific reason, of course. And of course, there is no scientific reason because there is no data to support any kind of ratio, really, except for the 8-to-1. But I feel like that 8-to-1 ratio, if it had been that many, we wouldn't have had these 10,000 a day case figures. And so drop that down to 5-to-1. That changes some things on that chart, but let's continue with the notes. Deaths are still about 55 a day. Reported cases seem to have plateaued. This is good news. I think this is what we've been waiting for, maybe. The red line, of course, is the number of daily reported cases on a 14-day rolling average, and we can see for about the last week they have been steady, bumping along just at under 8,000 a day. Now, the 7-day rolling average chart shows a peak and a very substantial decline. But I'm more interested in the longer-term trends, and so we're going to stick with the 14-day rolling average. When this red line of the 14-day rolling average starts going down, we'll know it's for real, and not just like a weekly transient kind of thing. Vaccine distribution is slow. In North Carolina, 344,000 people have had their first dose. This is a month and a half after vaccinations were started, and so we are off to North Carolina is one of the slowest states to get their vaccine house in order. 60,000 people have completed the series. In other words, they've had both shots, and now they should be immune to further reinfection or giving it to someone else. And of course, as I noted last week, most schools are closed again, although some are open. It's not like it was before Christmas. The analysis remains the same. 3 main drivers: social mobility, indoor spaces, and masks giving a false sense of security. I'm going to stick with that until I see a scientific study that shows that masks are effective, or until we're all wearing masks that have been made for the purpose of stopping a virus and are medically approved for that purpose. I'm going to stick with this because I don't think masks do a bit of good. And there's no scientific evidence that they do. So there doesn't seem to be an effective means of slowing this virus down. Now it is slowing down, so we will see. This plateau here, and what I expect to see as a slow trend downwards. Is this a blip in the rise of cases or a true plateau? The reasons for a plateau would be that this chart is correct, and that we are indeed 50% to herd immunity, and so cases should have reached some kind of peak and should be going down. With over 3.5 million people infected infected and recovered from this virus, that's a big impediment to this virus being able to spread to a new host. And it is still in wintertime, and we are all still indoors. So, despite the fact that we had the holidays, I've always felt that it wasn't the holidays in and of themselves that did it, that caused this rise in cases. It's just a natural the natural move indoors because the weather's cold out. That was the major factor. And the rise in mobility because people are just sick and tired of sitting around doing nothing all the time. And they want to see their friends and they want to see their family. For the blip, as cases appear to drop, people become lax, and so that probably the psychology of it probably has something to do with it. Certainly, we look back to late summer and everything seemed to be under control, and I think everybody kind of let loose for a little while, and then the cases started rising. And I think people are lax in general. I think most people have COVID fatigue. And it doesn't really, and I think a lot of people have just decided that they're just willing to take their chances. So people will become lax, and so maybe we could see another small spike. I don't think we'll see another big spike like we've seen in this last spike, though. Or the other case for the blip is the ratio in this chart is more like 2 or 3 to 1, which means that we are only about a third of the way to herd immunity, and that leaves plenty of people left to be infected. And so you can see the ratio plays an important role in trying to figure out what's going on. And so I'm just trying to be as reasonable as I can with the limited amount of data that I have. The outlook, the new herd immunity date is now 6/15/2021. So we are looking at 5 months. We will see what this curve does on the cases, and if it starts going down, if this, in other words, hold on, let me just get back up to this. If this starts to go this way, of course, it's going to push that date out a little bit too. So, but if it does, we are going to see more of it's going to be in that general time anyway, because we're way ahead of the curve. You see, we're way ahead of this curve right here. So even this curve could come and get all the way down to here, and pretty much the end date will remain pretty much the same. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. The deaths per case remain constant, which is good. Right to about here is where all the reported deaths have been put back to the day that they were reported. So just ignore that last little, like we ignore that last little downward, because that's not real data. It is data, but it's not complete data. And the same thing here. The complete data runs to about, unless you're talking about the number of reported cases, that is actual data all the way to here. All these other, where you show this peak and then it rolls off, this is incomplete data. So the data is only complete to about maybe 7 or 8 days ago, 9, 10 days ago. So that's the way. So just keep that in mind as you look at these charts. I am very cautiously optimistic, however, that this latest plateau, which is even more apparent on a 7-day rolling average chart, marks the high water mark of this viral spread in terms of number of daily cases. So no matter what happens, I don't think we're going to see 10,000 cases a day again. I think we're going to see this roll off and start going down this way. So assuming that nothing changes. Well, even if something does change, it's interesting that North Carolina has not instituted any more restrictions in about the last month. And so this will really tell the tale of what the virus is actually doing, which is good, because then we'll have better information. Because, during all this other time, the state was, messing around with telling people to stay home and this and that and the other, and picking the economic winners and losers, if you will. Now everything's been pretty constant for about the last 2 months. The last major thing was, I think, restricting alcohol sales after 9, and I think restaurants have to be closed at 10, and that's about it. But that's not, if you're a restaurant owner, it's awful. But if you're everybody else, it's not that big of a restriction. And so everybody talks about new normal. The old normal, to a large extent, is back right now. And I think that's reflected in this chart. If we had not locked down so hard, we would have had a much bigger rise here, but right here we would be much less. And so, you can't really say one way or another because we can't do an independent double-blind experiment on a population of people and a virus. So that's where we are. So, but I really do think this is the high water mark. Now, whether we have, another, if this thing might extend out till October or November, and if the state doesn't get its act together on these vaccinations, it will. And so right now, that's kind of an important aspect of this. The state needs to get it together and get these vaccinations rolled out. And whoever wants the vaccine needs to be able to get it. If you don't want it, I respect your right not to get it. I've already said I'm going to wait at least until June and see how that first set of test subjects from the Pfizer study are doing and the Moderna study. I want to see how they're doing after about a year of having this and see what the report is and see what's going on. I think that's just a good way to approach it. All right, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the section below. Like and subscribe. We appreciate when you do, and we'll see you on the next somewhat not fact-filled video, somewhat prognostication video. I'm trying to search for the right word. Anyway, we'll see you on the next video.